Welcome, Shades of Clarity channel. How are all my people doing out there? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're maintaining your sobriety. If you're still trying to get sober, we'll get there. It's a matter of intestinal fortitude, discipline, and really wanting it that bad. So I got bad news last week, and that's kind of what this video is going to be about. A friend of mine, I was a roommate with him for about 4 years in the late 90s when I was living in Wilmington. He developed, in 1997, he formed a company out of our residence, our condo, and has worked tirelessly. I mean, I'm talking 12-hour days. He started it was a multimedia marketing agency is what it became later on. But he worked for one company and learned how to create computer-based training. You know, when you start a job, they'll put you in front of a computer and it walks you through and asks questions and all that. He developed that and was successful with it. And from 1997 until, I want to say, 2021, because I called him about the time COVID was hitting and I was asking how business was. His name was Mike. And I was like, how are things going, man? Or what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know. He says, I don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. You know, I really don't know what's going to go on. So about a year later and some change, I found out that he had sold his company. I don't know what he sold it for, but it was enough for him to retire on. And he was the CEO of a boat. He became a CEO of a boat manufacturing company, and he also had an online skateboard company called Warehouse. And I have not spoken to him in several years, but he was living in Wilmington, had a really nice home near Wrightsville Beach, and he purchased another home in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, and the home faced the road out front. And the thing about it is, man, there was a storm that hit Wilmington, and he put up a video of him and waders, and the water was like up to his, you know, right below here, you know, his chest, and he's just kind of shaking his head with all that. And I can't remember the hurricane that went through Asheville, North Carolina. It went through the mountains, which is really, really rare. And you know, not less than a month later, he's up there having to clean up his place in Blowing Rock. And fortunately, it wasn't damaged, but the water, or it had washed. It was like his house, a road, and then it just fell off. And then it was just mountains as far as you could see. So he had to do that. He had to go up there and clean that up, get all that debris off the road, and part of the road was washed out. Well, the news that I got was he was an avid cyclist. They would get on the Blue Ridge Parkway and, you know, pedal, and it was like a riding club is what he had. So he was with some people last week, the beginning of last week, and I don't know how many people were in the group. I'm still waiting on information on that. But a white-tailed deer came out in front of him and he clipped it, and it threw him completely off the bike. I don't know if it threw him over the edge of the road, but he died. And it was a shock to all of us, you know, the phone started ringing. You know, we saw an obituary. Is this him? You know, people started calling me, wanting to know what was up. I was getting Facebook messages, everything. Like, you know, what's going on? What happened? I called a friend of mine in California. They used to be roommates before I was his roommate. And he said, yeah, it's him. And the deer came out. I guess it threw his helmet off and he hit his head somewhere and died at the hospital a little while later. And that's what I want to bring up is grief and alcohol. What do you do when something very tragic happens? And I think my alcoholism started at the tail end of when I was living with him. Because he kept vodka in the refrigerator and I was looking for a job and fooled around with that in the morning when I was going through the Whine ads, sipping on a little bit of vodka. I wasn't even an alcoholic and I don't even like liquor and I don't even know why I was doing it. So it's just stupid, but I mean, nobody gets out of this life alive. And I'm sure plenty of my friends out there have had to deal with losing somebody close or a friend, family member. What do you do? Do you go to the local liquor store? Do you go to the convenience store? Do you go to the grocery store? Do you buy as much alcohol as possible and just drink? That's not the solution. If you're in AA, it is important for you to let somebody know immediately what's happened so that they can start helping you. And if you're in therapy, make sure that you talk to your therapist about it and let them know if you feel like this is a trigger, and we've talked about triggers, you know, internal, external. This could be both. You know, externally, well, an event occurred that was tragic. It could be a trigger. He died. Internally, you may be depressed, and it can lead you down a very, very dark path where you lose your life as well. So it's very, very important to keep the communication lines open. Call friends. Let them know what's going on. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how you're feeling. Maybe call someone that's in a similar situation. But don't pick up that drink. It's only going to make things worse. And if you've got a lot of sobriety, for God's sake, don't ruin it over something like that. And I know people that have been triggered by a loss and ended up drinking of it, and, you know, over it. And it's just, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. The person that died is not, if they knew you were an alcoholic, they don't want you to drink. It's not going to be what they wanted. They would want you to stay sober and not raise hell at a wake or get drunk at a funeral over them. I certainly wouldn't want somebody, you know, something happened to me, I wouldn't want them losing their, you know, falling off the wagon with X amount of days or years or whatever. You know, I just would not want that to be the case. I know it sucks. It sucks to lose people, but that's part of life. Part of life is death and dealing with it. So pick up that phone. Pick up the 20,000 pound phone. I know it keeps getting heavier and heavier, but pick up the phone, reach out and call somebody and let them know how you're feeling. Let them know maybe you feel like you want to take a drink. Don't do it. Listen to what they have to say before you do anything. And if you're in AA, make sure you call your sponsor or whoever you're working with. But I just thought I'd make a video about this because it's been on my mind. It's been bothering me. I haven't made a lot of content lately. I just figure it would be a good time to talk about grief and alcohol and how it can be triggering to a lot of people. So if you like what you've heard, if you like what you've seen, subscribe. I want to try to get this thing to 1,000 subscribers. It's 809, I think now, something like that. It's come a long way in 2 years. Other people's channels have blown up and blown past mine, but my style is different. I don't have a really crazy story, just a garden variety alcoholic. Check out some of my other videos. I got some interesting stuff that you might want to lend an ear to. But with that, as always, you guys take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Don't drink over grieving situations. So come back, stay tuned, and I'll see you clones later.